Hello and welcome to another YouTube video tutorial on ASP.NET. In today's example, we're going to be creating a table in a database, filling it up with data, and then bring that data into an ASP.NET page. To get started, we will going to click on Start, and we're going to get our Visual Studio 2013 up and running. We're going to be creating a new project, and I'll be using C# as a language of choice, and we're going to be picking from the list ASP.NET Web Applications. And it is asking me if I am interested in creating an MVC page or an empty web project or a web form. Besides empty web project, majority of them do come with scaffolds, pre-written CSS documents and pre-formatted sites and things like that. In another set of tutorials, I'm going to talk about MVC architecture, but in this one, we're only going to concentrate on an empty project. We're not using Azure, and I'm not adding any of these components at this point to my project. I have an option of adding unit tests, MVCs, web API, web forms, but I'm keeping it blank and empty as a learning process for you guys. So clicking OK here, it is now creating the project for me. Once the project gets created for me, I need to add a web form, which is a kind of an ASP.NET page which allows me to work with forms. And these are all server-side forms. So I right-click on the Solution Explorer, and I go under Add, and then I go under Web Form. So I click on Web Form. So the first thing that it asks me is, what would you like to call this web form? I'll just simply call it Read Data 1. Click OK. And then here is my behind-the-scene code. I can switch as between split mode, source code mode, or simply design mode. Before we get started bringing controls over and doing things with those controls, we need to establish connection with the database, create the table, fill it with some data, and then we're going to be able to bring it over. So, reading employee data. I just put that text in here. Now let me click View and Server Explorer. And this is the database that I would like to connect to. Now let me delete this connection so that I can show you how you get connected to a database. So you right click on your data connections and you click on Add Connection. Once you click on Add Connection, you can then search for the server name that you would like to get connected to. So as I click on this list, it is refreshing the list, looking for all the servers that are available to me, and then the list will going to show me, okay, you can connect to these servers. So I'm going to be clicking on this server. I'll choose to test connection, success, click OK. The database is connected. Now I will going to expand on this, and I would like to create a table. So I'll right click on table, and I'll create a table using new query, or I could create a table using add new table. I'll try to do an example so that I can show you both. That's going to be killing two birds with the same stone. So let me click on new table. So when I click on new table, this will going to take me to the QBE environment, which is query by example environment. Here, let me start creating my fields. As I start creating my fields, choosing their data types, you will notice down below in this window, in the TSQL tab, you're going to start seeing the SQL is getting built. So let me create a field called employee ID, type integer, and as soon as I press go to the next field, you'll notice that this automatically gets updated for me. Then I have an employee name, which I would like to choose to be of data type character, and I can click inside the box and I can say 40, press enter, and this gets auto updated right away. Okay, I can click on this employee ID field and I can promote it to a primary key status if I would like to do so. It is currently already a primary key, so I don't have to worry about that. Now here I would like to introduce my next field. This will going to be the last field called salary, and I want my salary field to be a combination of decimal, so that I can also store values with decimal places. So here I have my 3 fields. Okay, now let me select this and right click and copy this, okay, just so that I can show you the other environment as well. I can also change the name of my table. Let me do that real quick here. Let me call this one employees. So just to show you that you can also use the TSQL editor down below to make changes and to edit things. So let me grab this, right click, copy, and now let me go to tables and run a new query, which is a separate environment, which is a free floating SQL environment. Let me right click and paste my query over here. Let me put a semicolon as a terminator that my query is complete. And let me select this query and click on this play button, which is execute the query. As the moment I do that, it executes my query and tells me that the command was completed successfully. Now I can come up here in my databases and I can hit the refresh button, and here I have my employees table. Let me get rid of this table. Okay, there's my employee table, and employees table, I would now like to add some data to it. So let me right click and show table data. And let me put some data in here. So 1, 2, 3, Sam, 45,000.88. 1 to 4, Sarah, 67,890.88. And let me add one more record for Samuel, 56,789.44. Okay, so all of these data values have been entered here. Now, the reason these are not being shown over here, I mean, you probably will notice here that when I'm typing, it shows a red line. So if I type 126, now it's red because I have not yet completed filling in my data set. So if I say Ali, 45,789, and now the moment I press enter, then that symbol goes away. So all this data that I've entered is now saved behind the scene. I can simply close this. I can right click on employees and show table data, and the data is preserved. Now the benefit of this environment is that I can now save my queries as an SQL file. And then later on, if I ever need these SQL files again, I can always go to File and I can bring these SQL files over and run them. So my table is created. Let me close this. I don't want to run it. I don't want to save this. None of that. Now I'm back in my form environment. So now switching back to Toolbox. If this Toolbox is not available to you over here, let's say if it is closed like that, you can always go to View and bring in your Toolbox from out here. And then here's my Toolbox. Okay, now from my Toolbox, I'm going to be going to Data, and I'm going to be bringing in SQL DataSource. So I'll drag it and drop it here. It doesn't matter where you drag it and drop it because this control will not going to show up on your screen. So here I have dragged it and dropped it. Now I need to configure this SQL DataSource to tap into my table that I've just created with the data item. So I'm going to click on this arrow and I'll say, okay, configure my data source. This is my data source. Moving on, this is my connection string. This is the table. I want you to select all the fields, and it just does the SQL for me. I'll test my query. It shows me the result set and click finish. Okay. Now, after I'm done with this, I have my data source. Now let me show this data on the screen. So for that purpose, I will going to bring in a control from the list over here. Okay. I'm going to bring in my DataList control. So DataList control comes forward, and this DataList control can be configured to a data source. So here I will go to choose my SQL data source. The moment I choose my SQL data source, you will notice it automatically gives me the template of how things will going to be done. So this is tapping into this data source and bringing the entire SQL query and formulating the template for me. Now let me run this code for you to be able to see the output. I could choose a browser of my choice. Here the Internet Explorer is being selected already for me. You can choose Chrome, Firefox, doesn't really matter, just for the purpose of displaying the output. And here is my ASP page, and as I'll show you the URL here, and as you can see, it's an ASPX page, and this is the data that I entered, and it's pretty much pulling the data from the database. Now, there is another option that I can exercise here, is that I can use some auto formatting features. So I can click on auto format, and I can choose among all of these beautiful formats available to me, like all these awesome formats. And this is all pre-done for you. However, if you want to customize it however you want it to be done, you can always write code behind the scene and customize it. And I'll show you that in my next tutorials, how you can do that. So now I have used this auto format feature from here that allows me to do this. Now let me run it again, just so that you can see the output. I'll use a different browser. Let's say I'll use Chrome this time. And here is the output in the Google Chrome. As you can see, here's the output being displayed. The data is being pulled from the database and is being formulated for me to see the output. So it's pretty quick. You need to create your database, you need to create your tables, enter data in it, create your data source, and then you can connect it to any of these data controls. We will going to explore this so much more in the next set of tutorials. I just wanted to give you an introduction to this idea. Catch you in the next tutorials. Have a great day. Thank you very much.